In ancient Egypt, killing a cat, even by accident, could get you executed. Not fined, not imprisoned, executed. Meanwhile, killing another human being often came with far lighter consequences. So what made a small, ordinary animal more protected than human life itself? It started with a goddess named Bastet. Bastet was associated with protection, fertility, and the home, and she was depicted with the head of a cat. To the ancient Egyptians, cats weren't just animals that happened to look like her symbol. They believed cats carried a piece of her divine energy inside them. Killing one wasn't just cruelty, it was an offense against a god. The Greek historian Herodotus, visiting Egypt centuries later, wrote about how seriously this was taken. He described a Roman soldier who accidentally killed a cat and was executed for it on the spot, despite Rome's political influence in the region. If even a foreign soldier with diplomatic protection couldn't escape the punishment, imagine what happened to an ordinary citizen. There's a story, possibly exaggerated, that Egyptian soldiers refused to fight back during a battle because their enemies had released cats onto the battlefield. They were too afraid of accidentally harming one to defend themselves properly. True or not, the story tells you everything about the culture's mindset. This reverence wasn't just superstition either. Cats served a very practical purpose. They protected grain stores from mice and rats. In a society where famine could wipe out a population, protecting the food supply was protecting life itself. A cat wasn't just sacred, it was, in a very real sense, a guardian of survival. So, Egyptians treated them accordingly. Wealthy families dressed their cats in jewelry. Some wore tiny gold earrings. Others had collars made of precious materials. When a pet cat died, the mourning process was intense and visible. Families would shave off their eyebrows completely, and they would continue mourning, visibly, publicly, until those eyebrows grew back in. Cats were mummified, just like humans, sometimes with elaborate wrapping and even tiny coffins. In 1888, an Egyptian farmer stumbled onto something almost unbelievable. A massive tomb near the town of Beni Hassan, containing over 80,000 mummified cats. 80,000 in a single burial site. This wasn't a one-time event. Cat veneration was an entire ongoing industry. But here's where the story takes a darker turn. If cats were this sacred, why were there so many of them ready to be mummified? Modern X-ray analysis of these mummies revealed something disturbing. Most of the cats were less than a year old when they died, and many showed signs of blunt trauma to the head, meaning they were likely killed on purpose. Some Egyptian entrepreneurs were breeding cats specifically to kill them young. Not out of cruelty for its own sake, but for profit. Mummified cats were valuable. Pilgrims and worshippers wanted offerings for the temples of Bastet. A dead, perfectly wrapped cat was a product, and demand was high. So an animal protected by law, mourned with genuine grief, worshipped as divine, was also being mass-produced for sacrifice on an industrial scale. This wasn't necessarily seen as a contradiction by the Egyptians themselves. Egyptologist Campbell Price points out that ritual killing, in their worldview, wasn't cruelty. It was an exchange, an offering, a sacred transaction with the gods, not a crime against them. To us, that distinction feels strange, maybe even hypocritical. But it reveals something important about how differently ancient people understood the line between sacred and ordinary death. A cat could be a god's living vessel one moment and a religious commodity the next. Both ideas existed in the same society at the same time, without canceling each other out. So the next time your cat knocks something off a table and stares at you, unbothered, remember, for a few thousand years, an entire civilization genuinely believed they might be looking at a god. And, terrifyingly for the cat, also potentially a product.